two ends. But what I would put on the board were these three words: reactionary, evolutionary, and revolutionary. And try to give all the students in the class an equal perspective of how we were going to look and listen to the music for the rest of that semester. Reactionary, someone looking back to the past, someone who honors the past, understands the past. And certainly, Mingus, if you read about him and you've heard him, you'll often refer to Jelly Roll Morton. He'll often refer to the stuff that he's doing when he's talking in the time period when he's taped, like in the 60s and 70s. Well, Jelly Roll was doing this in 1902. So, in fact, Mingus using collective improvisation to the extent that he did was really kind of a reactionary choice at the time that he became popular, in the height of bebop, when it really was all about, head solos, and people were going out to clubs to hear these great solos. That's what they wanted to do. And that's what was paying the bills, so to speak. But Mingus, being the savvy businessman that he was always going against the grain. He wanted to carve off that initial space. So he would often do something that wasn't being done commonly. In this regard, his whole experimentation when he came east and was involved with the jazz workshop, it always ended up being about this collective improvisation. And as you know, improvisation was very important to him, and he called that composition, not improvisation. He thought all the great improvisers should be called composers. Evolutionary was sort of, he was alive at the time of what was happening. He was involved with the beboppers, and he played with the greatest of the beboppers, and he spoke that language fluently. And he wrote several tunes that very much captured that energy that was going on. He didn't often do what the typical beboppers were doing at the time, but it was kind of funny when it got to be the 70s, and everybody had sort of morphed into electric mode, and I guess at that time everybody was doing sambas. Mingus comes out with those Two Changes album, and what does he do? He basically has a bebop band playing heads and solos, which he never did, but he did then because nobody else was doing it at that point. So he was very much an evolutionary, and mostly when you read about him in any of the encyclopedias of jazz, they'll always say Charles Mingus, avant-garde jazz composer. And I can hear him now. I'm sure he took exception to that. But there was a revolutionary aspect about Mingus. And probably in that regard, it would be his experimentation with form, his bringing together of classical and jazz to be just a statement, his atonalism that he championed at certain points, say like something like the clown. And players they have to play not in a key, they have to play in a mood, and not only a mood, but the mood described by someone telling a story. So, not what you would normally do when you go in the shed to get your chops together. So, but maybe we'll do a little bit of the clown later, because that's a kind of interesting piece, because what it demands from the players, because you have to be really adept at playing changes, but you also have to be adept at letting go of who you are and becoming part of a group composition that is not necessarily based on the functions of tonality. So that would get us started, and of course there would be questions, and well, what do you mean by that, and blah, blah, blah. But it always gave the class a unique and solidified starting point. So from that point on, no matter what you knew when you got there, at least now we knew how we were going to proceed.